have a good argument with people and talk about, why things are the way they are. But the reality of it is, it's not going to change anything. A conversation you have with somebody doesn't change anything. You have to go out there. You have to kind of navigate within the world that we exist.
Funny how.
Come here, though. Yeah, he's crazy, see? Who are you?
We interrupt this program to bring you.
So what's up, man? How are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. How are you, man? It's good to see you.
Yeah, you too, man. Yeah, it's been a minute for sure.
It sure has.
Yeah.
I like the shirt. It's a good looking shirt you got there.
Shout out Shockwave, son.
Yeah, man. I happen to have one right here. So.
Ooh, nice.
They Looks are good. available for purchase in case anybody saw the back.
Yeah.
Right. So we got the nice logo right there on the back. So
love it.
Good looking shirt.
Yeah, they're good shirts, man. Thanks for printing those up. I'll leave those if people want to pick one up. I'll leave everything down in the description, and people can go grab those. Yeah, I'm gonna go hard on promoting, man. I got some ideas for content and stuff like that. I just been swamped. So
likewise, definitely hear you.
Yeah,
definitely hear you. But yeah, we'll definitely collaborate and figure something out here because we've got something there, and it's a good shirt. I've already gotten some compliments. I definitely wear it out. So
good, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, of course.
So obviously we'll get into the business and kind of, how you started this thing. Cause I love the idea. I mean, we kind of touched base a little bit prior to this, but what kind of prompted you to start an apparel company? Cause obviously it's, I know it's been on your mind for a minute, but kind of walk me through that thought process and what are the goals?
Yeah. I mean, I've wanted to start a business for a long time. And I went to grad school about 7 years ago, and you get a kind of taste of all different types of businesses. You and I kind of came from the same, very similar walks of life in terms of career wise. So worked for the big corporate machine, but always intrigued to do something that was more of a small business. Now working for a real estate investment company the last 6-7 years or so. And always wanted to do something that was different, something I could do that was kind of maybe a side hustle that could grow legs. And, you can just use your imagination, right? And start thinking about all different types of products, goods, services that you can offer. I've always been drawn to apparel. Not that I'm a big fashion guy, but more or less, it's just one of those things that I think I picked up on as a kid. It's just people always want shirts. They always want hoodies. They always want stuff like that. And why not? Right. Yeah. So I think it was about 5 years ago. My son and I created this logo and a brand, and we decided to do something that was more of like a drop ship idea. So we started that, and we kind of let it fizzle out a little bit, but it did grow some following, and we kind of let it go to the side for a while, and then kind of had the idea to bring it back. But this time around, instead of using a company like Printful or Teespring or something like that to make our apparel, it was like, hey, what if we designed our own print studio and started just kind of doing it on our own, and instead of us selling our brand, right, we'll actually just offer that as a service to local businesses, anybody who wants, a custom shirt for a private event. If they want something for, you name it, right? They just want their own custom shirt. And then we'll also make our own brand on the side of it that we can offer that'd be pretty cool. So,
that's rad.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to do something like that, I think the most important thing to do is to do something that you think is fun and that people will like. And it's crazy, people, we haven't done any marketing, and we've just done so much business so far, and it's just the word of mouth. And especially you put out a really good quality shirt with a cool design or something like that. And then all of a sudden you're starting to get a text message from somebody who's like, hey, I know so-and-so, and they told me about the shirts. I really like the shirts. Hey, I was thinking, I need like 8 to 10 shirts for me and my, flag football team. Right. And that's a real story. So those little things that happen, it's one of those transactions that people like to have and they keep doing. And it is a lot of fun to just create with people.
That's right.
So, we've gotten really big into design. We've got different types of materials, stuff like that. The longer that we do this and the more we do this and the more that people kind of give us feedback on what they like, it just really just makes us better and makes it more fun.
That's great. Yeah. And I think that's the big thing, right? When you start a business is A, is it fun, right? You nailed that. Right. B, is it something sustainable that you could do forever? That's how you got to kind of look at everything. I think coming from the corporate world, both you and I came from working at these big beverage companies, and It's great. It's fun. There is some sustainability, quote unquote sustainability, and but unfortunately, I think what's happening now, the new American dream is not what it was, when our parents were our age, right? Where it's like 401k benefits, Social Security, like, hey, you find a nice job, you're not going to get fired, stick it out for 30 years, you retire, you get a nice gold watch at the end of it. Like it's just not how it is anymore, unfortunately.
Right.
And I think it's kind of a good thing. It's not like that. I mean, you kind of look at like we're at the same age, right? So I just turned 39, and we're now paying Social Security for our parents to retire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But unfortunately, the way the workforce is, and the amount of money that our government has spent, you and I will not have Social Security. It's not going to happen. It's impossible. Something drastic needs to happen for that to go down. So you can't rely on that type of thing. And I think working till you're 60 or 70, people are starting to understand, well, if I'm working till that age and I'm not going to have Social Security benefits, and who knows exactly what's going to happen with stock market, real estate. There's no means of investing now. So why am I going to work till I'm 65, 75 years old at a company, maybe have a retirement? Sure. 401k, you're smart with investments, maybe, but you also could get laid off, right? Pandemic could happen, right? There's so many like things that have happened just in the past 5-10 years to where we thought job security meant 9 to 5, corporate America, 401k, benefits. I had all that and I got laid off twice. One of them was due to the pandemic. So it's like you do everything you can, but a lot of that stuff is out of your control. What is in your control? That's the question you got to ask yourself. And I think we're in a very fascinating, exciting time in and really just the country, but the world as a whole with the development of AI and automation and social media and just the growth of everything. We're able to kind of delegate those tasks that maybe would be difficult having a business on your own. Now it's a little bit more easier, quote unquote, easier than what it was starting a business from scratch.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you mentioned like Printify and some of these, suppliers that could do your own thing. And that's kind of an example of like taking those shortcuts of starting a company, like you mentioned in the apparel business, but starting a company in that side of things to where it's automated, it makes things easier, but also too, you lose a lot of profits. So those businesses are good maybe for some people if you just want to do a little side hustle. But if you're like trying to start a business, that's not the way to go because they take so much of your profits and there's so many fees involved in it where you think it might be more beneficial to be on that the automated side of things, but it's really not, right? It's not beneficial to do that, especially if you are committed to this business plan. And, it's scary to have the inventory and, I get that. I'm sure you could talk more to that, but it's better if you want to do a full business, I think, taking control of that, owning your own thing. Because again, going back to what if something happens to Printify? What if something happens to Shopify? Like you have to kind of have these things in place where what I found owning my own business is the more you can separate yourself from the man, lack of a better term, overall, I think you're going to be happier, right? You might not make as much money. You might not sell as many shirts, but I think overall you're going to be happier.
That's my big MO is taking control. There's so much going on, right? Like in the world, and you can try to make sense of it as much as you can. You can try to have a good argument with people and talk about why things are the way they are. But the reality of it is, it's not going to change anything, right? The conversation you have with somebody doesn't change anything. You have to go out there and you have to kind of navigate within the world that we exist. I agree with you. With the world of automation and things like that, it's how can we leverage that, to our advantage so that we can do things like this, right? So that we can build small businesses and we can take that to the next level. And I completely agree. You have to separate yourself because there is nothing in this world anymore that's guaranteed, especially when it comes to your career. And you kind of mentioned, just the changes in what's available to us versus what was available to previous generations, and then what that looks like for future generations. It reminds me of a story that I had kind of read an excerpt on, and it was something along terms of who stole the American dream or something like that. And it really talks about the emergence of big business, and it really does point the finger a lot at Wall Street, because it becomes less about the mission that it started with and the people and the initial promise, and it becomes more about being publicly traded and trying to beat every quarter over quarter forever, right? And the stakes that companies will go to and the measures that they'll take to be able to make that happen, right? So people lose their jobs, they cost cut like crazy, right? And what the company was to begin with is no longer that. It's a totally different entity, right? When you really think about it. And at the end of it, you may not be there to see it, right? So, what can you do and how can you play the game to set yourself up for success? And then me as a father, you as a father, right? It's like, how do you do that so that you can not only set them up, but you can teach them how to navigate that game as well?
100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, it also comes down to, I think, there was a very fascinating statistic. I'll try to maybe ping it up here if I end up finding it. But the statistic was back in, our parents and our grandparents. It talked about how fathers weren't around for their kids. And I thought that was, it's crazy because I couldn't imagine like not being there as much as I am now. Although I do get why my dad did what he had to do. I mean, he worked 3 jobs, you know what I mean? One of them being at Coca-Cola for 17 years. But he worked 3 jobs. My mother was stay-at-home mom / owned her own company, and she was a server. I mean, they hustled, right? Just like a lot of our parents did. But, their grandparents, their fathers, my grandparents, and, their mothers and my grandmothers, these folks worked at the mill, right? Like they worked at Ford. They worked on the fucking assembly line. Like, my grandfather was coming from Italy, came over here on the boat and worked in the railroads in Jersey. Like there's different careers now than there was back then. So I think they paved the way for us to not, I don't want to say not work as hard because that's the wrong term, but not working the way we had to sustain this country. Meaning like, I always say like our grandparents kind of literally paved the way, meaning they built the roads, right? They built, they worked at the mill, they worked in the coal plants. I mean, they literally kind of made it to the point to where now our kids can say, my parents worked, in social media. My parents worked to create this tech industry of AI and, workflow automation and emails and like, our kids can say that about us. But there's a very fascinating proverb that I find interesting that I really was motivated to start my own company, especially when we knew that we were going to have a kid. And you could probably relate a lot to this, to where there was a fisherman in a deserted area of the world, and he would just wake up every day and he would go fishing with his kids. He would come back to the village with his wife, and they would cook food. They would drink, wine and hang out around the fire and just have fresh fish, and just be a part of their community. Then along comes a fucking American man, and the American goes out with the fisherman because he wants some fresh fish, and he goes out and he kind of sees how the fisherman does things, and he's like, there's no one really else out here fishing. You can make a business out of this. And the fisherman goes, what do you mean? And he goes, well, all you got to do is just hire a bunch of fishermen, teach them how to do it, right? Then they're going to fish for you, come back. You could build, an office where you can distribute fish and sell fish out of a market. And then that way, you can have multiple people working for you, making money. And he goes, okay, then what? And he goes, well, eventually you'll do enough of that for 20, 30, 40 years, and you can retire. And he goes, you know what I would do when I retire? And the American goes, no, what? He goes, I would go out on my boat. I would fish with my kids. I would come back to the village. I would drink wine and hang out with my community. Now, what's the takeaway? Takeaway is, why are you going to work your ass off for 30, 40 years when you could do that now? You could retire now, essentially. Right. And people are like, well, you need money. And that's true, 100%. You got to pay a mortgage, and I get that. I get the reality of it. But also, you would have more money if we didn't spend as much money, right? If we didn't understand, or rather, we didn't think that we needed all these things, and we're spending all this money to get validation, to hit this like dream of like the American dream and the white picket fence and this and that. If you could just live below your means, and not stress out about getting all the new things. Because why do we work? We don't necessarily work because we want to retire. We work because we want to buy shit. And that's just the reality. But if you can separate yourself from that, and being a business owner, I think, puts you in that break-even mentality and understanding like checks and balances, blacks and reds. And like when you start owning a business, it builds a lot of character, because I think you can appreciate money a little bit more, to where when you're getting that paycheck every 2 weeks, you know, you think buying the new iPhone is a good idea. It's not. It's not buying it. You know, Tony Robbins once said that I thought was great, where when Apple, I don't know if you heard this, but when Apple first opened their company, whatever it was, 20, 25 years ago, if you just invest the amount of money that you've spent on the new iPhone every year, if you invested that 20 years ago, you'd be a multimillionaire from their stocks. If you just invested that money into Apple stock, instead of buying a new Apple phone every year, you'd be a multimillionaire. That's crazy when you think about it, where it's like, because what's the point, right, of getting a new phone every year?
Yeah, I actually just heard or read the exact same story. But you know what it is? It's we're just consumers, right? I mean, we're just a community of consumers, and you know, it's one of those things. Americans don't learn their lesson. I mean, we will buy and buy and buy until we can't, and you know, and there's always speculation of kind of where are we at, you know, in this economy, and I think we've got a lot of debt. There's a lot of personal consumer debt, and I think once that shit hits the fan is really when people stop being consumers. But you know, when you really think about it, there's so much conversation about inflation and so much conversation about all these things, and you know, you can go down a real rabbit hole. Link them back to COVID. You can link them back to the war. You can link them back to so many different things.
Good. Yeah, I mean, the reality of it is we as consumers really have so much control. You know, you talked about consumerism, and as Americans, and I mean, you can say it's for other people, right? I mean, that's what we do. We work, spend our money on stuff, and it's, you know, a lot of times stuff we don't need, or it's stuff that, you know, we're just doing to impress people, or just to kind of fulfill us, right? Like we worked all week, we want to reward ourselves. It makes us feel good. Maybe there's something going on, and, you know, buying stuff makes us feel better. I think we can all relate to that.
For sure.
But, you know, the way I kind of see it is we will consume and consume and consume until we can. And, you know, right now I know that there are people that are friends of mine, or people that I just see at a barbecue or whatever it is. And, you know, I obviously thought to it through my head, I'm like, man, you've got to be in so much debt, because there's no way that you afford everything that you have, right? Like you have that new Jeep, or you have this, and you have that, and you've got more stuff than I do. And it's like, there's no way that you're okay financially. There's just no way. And I think that's kind of where we're headed right now, because people just continue to buy so much. But what I wish they could understand is that, you know, we control so much of the pricing of things. Like there's a huge rabbit hole of inflation, and, you know, we can tie inflation to so many things. We can talk about COVID, we can talk about the war, we could talk about, you know, a number of things. There's going to be people that are say, you know, it's the minimum wage increase, right? Like you name it. You know, nobody really has it pinpointed down, but at the end of the day, if you stop buying something, or you stop buying a bunch of things, and you can't charge a lot of money for those things, right? And one thing we're really, really bad about, right, is we don't do a good enough job of understanding that we actually control it. And if we did, I really think, I mean, inflation is not just an American issue right now. It's all over the world, of course. But, you know, if we just decided, hey, we're just not going to buy that anymore, because it doesn't make sense for us to buy that anymore. You know, the impact that would have, and it's a twofold impact, because it also impacts the employees that work for those companies, right? You know, when you try to stick it to a company, you know, what the company really does is they just basically roll that shit downhill, and it impacts the people in the middle, the blue collar people who are actually doing the work, right? So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword there, but at the end of the day, if you want to pay less for things, you know, you just got to stop buying it. Yeah,
and I think it's laterally to that, which is a great point, where we do have a lot of control, but also corporations, they're just really good at marketing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like we love spending money, and also corporations just are really good at marketing. And
yes, they are.
that's what's so hard about it, right? And that's why I find myself a lot actually trying to navigate how I consume things. So like, when it comes to consuming content, watching TV, looking on my phone, scrolling, I try not to consume a lot of things that I'm going to get in the habit of buying, right? Like I have an Apple phone. I don't follow Apple on YouTube or social media because I know they're going to put out a bunch of dope like marketing ads, and they're going to put out like a really cool like launch of their new iMac Air or whatever, right? And you just have to be really careful of that. It's the same thing when my wife, she always shows me like all these different, influencers that are promoting this new fucking purse or, these kids' toys or whatever. And I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, I just want to show you. And I go, the second you clicked on that, you're now going to get served ads for the next 2 weeks.
And you are too. It's going to be on your phone, right?
100%. It already is.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you stop
so
sending
funny.
me this
That's
stuff?
how you know what your wife is searching. That's how she knows what I'm searching. Because it's like, she'll ask me, she'll be like, hey, I was looking at hotels, and she's like, hey, I don't know, have you ever heard of this place and this and that? And I'm like, yeah, I was just looking it up. She's like, oh, it came across in the feed. So
yeah, I get served all her stuff, and then she gets served a bunch of like UFOs and conspiracy theory stuff because that's what I do. But yeah, man, we just got to be careful at. I mean, we are consumers, and you got to be careful how you consume. I mean, the example that kind of you're alluding to, I think, is like what we did with the dairy industry. It's fascinating that we literally pushed out milk.
Yeah.
People realized that they don't need to drink milk, and they were just really good at marketing, telling us that milk is great for. Oh yeah.
The
fact that these bastards aren't getting sued. I mean, they literally lied to us and said that calcium builds stronger bones.
Right.
No, not true. Not true at all.
What are your dietary constrictions right now, if you don't mind me asking? Are you a vegan? Are you like close to?
I don't say full vegan because vegans will get mad at me because I do have honey. God forbid, that's not vegan. And occasionally I'll have the eggs. I'll have some eggs.
Yep.
Like if I have a big training day, like if I'm going to work out a lot, I'll crank out a bunch of eggs and egg whites. But yeah, aside from that, I'm vegan. I don't do any meat. I don't do any cheese, no dairy at all, no milk. I make my own almond milk and oat milk, and then for protein I'll have like plant protein or pea protein or something like that. But yeah, I mean I would say I'm more vegan than anything.
I ask because I went through some dietary changes about 7 years ago. My wife and I became vegan, and I lasted about a year before I started introducing seafood. I love seafood, and I wanted it back. And then like you, I started doing the occasional eggs. I started doing, some peas and stuff. So now I'm not really anything. I mean, I guess I called myself a pescatarian for a few years. Sure. And then last summer, actually after 6 years without any meat, I started eating chicken again and stuff like that. But it's interesting what happens to you when you stop eating all of that. Like I don't have huge cravings. Like when my friends found out that I'm back to eating meat and stuff, they're like, oh, we have to go to a steakhouse. We've got to go get you a burger. I have no desire to. It's so crazy. So I haven't had a steak. I've had like a burger. It was okay. Like the things that I used to love and crave, but the one thing I never reintroduced back is milk. Because it was just such a mindset shift when I stopped drinking milk. I realized how gross it is. Like it's milk that is from an animal. It's not from us. And milk is really supposed to be consumed when you're a baby, right? So, I mean, it's like you're drinking milk of an animal that is supposed to go to a baby. So that in itself is just like, what are we doing? It's just now the thought of milk is just so gross to me. So you were talking about that, but you don't realize how much that industry did to find their way into everything. Because when I became a vegan, right, you're looking at the ingredients on every package and like, damn it, there's milk in fucking everything. Like, why is there milk in this product? Why is there milk in this product? Like, it doesn't make sense. But it's just crazy how all of that happens just without anybody even really knowing, right? You just consume things without really even understanding that something's in it and why is it in there.
Yeah, for sure. And you definitely become more of a label reader. I think I never encourage people to be vegan unless you think that's something you want to do for, whatever more reasons. I don't typically do it because of that. I think it is crazy how we do harm animals just to feed us, but I get why we do it.
Sure.
But I also think it's just more important the way we farm animals. I would probably eat meat if I trusted the industry. I don't trust the industry anymore. I forget the statistic, but I think it was something along the lines of, in the last 55 years, we've depleted almost the entire ocean of food, of fish.
What?
Yeah, that's why there's, mass factory farming of salmon, and we have to make our own fish because we're running out of fish worldwide. So just because we like sushi, like that's weird. It's weird that just in less than 100 years, the planet's been around for a long time, a real long time. And less than 100 years, we fucked it up with taking out fish. So now we're creating meat. These things like Beyond Meat, Impossible. We're making salmon, and we're speeding up that process. We're feeding hens and chicks. We're feeding chickens hormones to kind of boost them up and fatten them up so it could yield more chicken. Our eggs here in America, you have to refrigerate them because of everything that we put in the chickens and the hormones. They would go bad. Versus like if you go to other countries, eggs are at room temperature because they're literally they pop out of the chicken and they put them on the shelf. So when you start doing all this research and you understand that just America is just really good at marketing, and they're really good at figuring out ways to dose its citizens with chemicals just at the limit where it's legal, which again that alone is fucked up. Just the fact that there's the FDA makes these limits to where it's like, okay, so how much of this chemical can someone die from?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, if they have, 10 milligrams. Okay. So legally they're allowed to have 9. What? Like, what are we doing? Like, it should be illegal. Like, if there's even a small chance of it killing us, it should be illegal. Like, that's what every other country does in the world. Every fucking country except America. Well, in China, because they don't really give a shit about a lot of stuff. But everything that we put in our body in America is legal. Like there's not a lot of things that are illegal that's in our food. And that's just crazy. And the way they're able to get away with it is because there's no one that's going to study a human being for 20 years and say, oh, it was because of that bread that killed him. Like you can't track it. So that's how all these companies are getting away with stuff. I mean, if you really think about it, you look on the back of almost, 80% of the things that are in your house and it says not approved by the FDA. How am I able to buy that?
Yeah. It's insane.
And that's like saying, the FDA is trustworthy. I don't like the FDA at all, but that is our organization that's supposed to protect us from shit. But what? I'm able to buy it. And, this is like also the whole thing of the American dream bullshit that we were fed, where it's like, it's the American dream. We're allowed to smoke cigars and drink whiskey and drive our Fords without a seatbelt. Like that's if I die tomorrow, fuck them. At least I'll die going out crazy like an American. Like we got to get out of that. That's the wrong mentality to have, man. Like you got to have like the blue zone Italian mentality, which is like, I'm going to sit with my community and I'm going to have the best bread, the best pasta, and the best wine in the world. And I'm just going to sit back and look at the views and relax. That's the way, man. That's the way.
Those people live a lot longer than we do.
Yeah. They're not as rich. They're not as rich. But again,
it depends on your definition of rich, though, right?
Bingo.
I mean, that's just it.
Bingo. Yeah. I do this. I do this series with my buddy he's from Rome, and his name's Amadeo. Shout out Amadeo. And we do this series where it's called the Tinfoil Episodes, where we talk a lot about conspiracies and stuff. And he's from Italy. He just moved here a couple of years ago, and now he lives here in the States, and he loves it. He's in his 20s. He's making tons of dough. He's got a bunch of businesses. He's in real estate. Like he's loaded. He would never be able to have this opportunity in Italy, but his plan is get enough money, have some some money on the back end where he's making some residuals, and then just move back to his homeland. Like, that's the way to go.
Right.
The problem is, though, a lot of governments, like in Italy and China and all these places, you can't necessarily make a lot of money because the way the government's set up. Like, they want to limit the citizens to do things. So the one thing that's great about America is we do have the mentality of like, who gives a fuck? I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to make money. This is the richest country in the world. Like, opportunity. There's a lot of pros, but that's also us getting fed that is what's important.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting fed. It's important to be in Silicon Valley and have multi-billion dollars and live in a big house, on the water, and have the bed that comes up from the floor, and like all this stuff. We're like, wow, whoa, stop. We don't need that stuff. It's dope. It's really cool to have all that stuff. It's cool to have a closet that talks to you. Like, I get it, but why?
Yeah, it's glamorized. It comes down to wants versus needs, right? And we have to be so shiny object about things that we really just kind of go back to what you were saying before, right? Like, we just focus on what we need and what we don't. Then really, I think that you have a deeper understanding for life and what makes you whole versus what makes you just kind of chasing something all the time. And I think, it's probably one of our biggest flaws is we're just always chasing something. And it's okay to chase certain ambitions, and it's nothing wrong with being driven and just trying to create and trying to cultivate things. But at the same time, you've got to always be willing to be able to ground yourself a little bit and take yourself back to reality. But I think everything is glamorized. I mean, you've got everything on television, like what you were just mentioning, right? Like Silicon Valley and stuff like that. I mean, you can go to any reality TV show, right? That is showing all that stuff, and and people that starts to become like embedded in you. That's a symbolism of success, and that's what you and your friends want to go do and things like that.
Yeah, at such an early age too. That's that's the one thing I told myself when we found out we were pregnant, and especially a girl. I was like, she's not going to have a phone until she's 18, and that's going to be really difficult. And I get it, but we're going to work hard to try to do it. And hopefully, other parents and other kids, I think, maybe are starting to catch on to this as we're starting to understand that the rise of social media in girls in particular, the rise of social media, there's a very scary correlation of suicide rates, and body dysmorphia, and just mental illness. Yeah. Again, primarily in girls, because everybody wants to compare yourself. I mean, that's the problem with reality TV and the Kardashians, right? Like you think that's how life is. Social media is like the Kardashians times a billion. It's a different girl, a different life on every swipe. And we constantly, no one's perfect. I do it too. Like you compare yourself. You're like, oh, that's a dope setup. I want that. That's a dope camera. I want that. Oh, I want this. Oh, look at his setup. Oh my God, his office tour. Oh my God. So I have a different sexy dream than other people. Some other people look at someone that's working out and be like, I want that body. I want this. I want that. Ooh, that necklace. I want that. The problem with constantly comparing yourself to other people is you think it's attainable, which more often than not, it's not really attainable, and you're never going to see that in your life. So you're building up this expectation that you're never going to hit. And when you don't hit a goal, it's horrible for you. Mentally, it's just, it hits you like a ton of bricks. So if you don't have these expectations, you're going to be better off. Now, how do we not get those expectations? Well, that's hard, right? Because we are ambitious and we are innovative and we want all these cool things. But if you can just cut ties with those and get rid of those materialistic things, you won't have those dreams to get these things, which means you won't be disappointed when you don't have them. When you start looking at other things in life. And the one thing I've been doing is trying to be a lot more minimal when it comes to everything. Obviously I have a dope podcast setup. Everyone's like, oh, but you have like thousands of dollars. Yeah, I do that because this is my life. This is my business. But
Yeah, of course.
Like if you look at my closet, I'm down to like 25 things. I got rid of everything. I got rid of all my shirts except, the ones from Shockwave. Shout out Shockwave. But, I got rid of a lot of the things that I wasn't wearing anymore. I followed this very interesting rule of like, whatever you wear for 3 months. I don't know if you heard this, the reverse hanger rule. Whatever you wear for 3 months, put it on a hanger, but reverse in your closet and put those in a separate part of your closet. Right? You follow? So that way, when in 3 months you look at your closet and you could see exactly what you wore in the past 3 months. Everything you didn't wear, donate, get rid of.
It's an interesting concept. I like it.
Because think about it, right? Like, why would you need a shirt that you wear once a year? If it's for like winter or things like that, or you zip it up, throw it in a suitcase, put it in the attic or something like that, especially if you're here in Florida. Why would you need winter clothes in a closet? But that way it alleviates the mess, the clutter, because when you have physical clutter, you got mental clutter. And that's the one thing I've really been trying to do is just eliminating clutter, because it makes things a lot easier and we don't have a lot to worry about. Like in your office, if you got 5 things on your desk instead of 30, well, that means like when you dust once a week, you're not moving 20 things to dust. You just do a one quick swipe and that's it. It's just trying to simplify things as much as you can alleviates a lot of stress and clutter in your life. And that's one thing that I've been trying to work on.
No, I agree. I wish we could do that. We're a family of 6, so I feel like we're always trying to do that, and it's always the kids' toys. It's always their stuff.
Yeah, you're
first.
Screwed. You've been screwed for years.
So
you're done.
I'm so screwed. Yeah, and it's all self-inflicted. I mean, I've got no one to blame but myself here.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. That's okay.
I like the cell phone rule, though. I mean, so I've got 4 boys. My 2 older ones are now 18 and 16, and I think we gave in when they were probably like 11 and 13, and it was more about safety. It was more about, hey, we want you guys, you guys want to ride bikes, you want to go around the neighborhood, you want to go to friends' houses, you're starting to come and go as you please a little bit. Hey, we're gonna get you cell phones, we're gonna throw you on the plan. But they were forbidden from social media. So my oldest son, he doesn't have any interest on social media other than YouTube account. But my 16-year-old, he finally got on like a year ago or so. But I mean, it's concerning as a parent, because the internet's just a scary place in general, right? I mean, you go to any video right now, and you're looking at full-grown adults, and you're reading comment sections. You're just like, man, can't we just be better? Like, it's just so bad. Can't we just be better? And then when it comes to social media, I mean, it's hard enough for adults. I can only imagine for kids. And I think the hardest thing for people to really understand is that social media is a highlight reel. People are displaying their best. You see these pictures of people, and it's like, oh my God, look at all the cool things they're doing. Look at how good they look in that picture. Look at this, look at that. It's like, well, they probably, if they're anything like me and, my wife taking a selfie is probably like the 8th attempt that they took. We got the one picture where we both like it, right? Like, oh, I like myself in this one. Yeah, but I don't like myself in this one, right? So it's like, it's all fluff, right? It's all fluff. Some people will post, their dark days or their bad times and this and that. But for the most part, if you go down that rabbit hole of comparing yourself to people, it's really just not healthy. And, it's sad to hear the statistics about kids and teenagers, but it's not surprising considering how things really go on the internet and on social media.
Yeah. And, I think once we start treating social media and these phones as tools versus like a necessity, because you hear that all the time, right? Like, I was having this conversation with a buddy that has kids, and he's like, well, it's like, we need it. Like, I need my phone for email, and I need that. And I go, careful. No. Yeah. You want it. You want it so you can respond right away. You don't have a laptop? I got one. Okay. So if the email's important, wouldn't you have your laptop open? I was like, just disconnect yourself for a second, because one thing that I'm trying to tell parents, because you never want to tell a parent how to parent, but the one thing that I'm trying to preach a lot is, like I'm having, I'll post content of our daughter, and I talk a lot about parenting stuff now, which I'm really enjoying, just kind of creating value out of that and entertainment. But if she ever gets old enough to where she's like, what, can I have a phone? I think the conversation for me might be, show me research where kids below the age of 18 have phones and it's good for them.
Yeah.
Show me research where that's the case. Because I think if we start treating social media and phones as like, alcohol, weed, tattoos, like these are all wants. And they're also things that we would never allow kids to do below the age of 18 or 21 in some cases. So the reason being is not because we're controlling, it's because study after study has been shown smoking obviously causes cancer, but like smoking weed at a young age messes up with cognitive function and the development of the brain below the age of 25. Same thing with alcohol. If you drink too young, it fucks with, because your brain's not fully developed until you're 25. So it's just so crucial that we start having these tough conversations about this stuff, because I've been thinking about it a lot lately, because I do plan to involve her in content, and we're doing like this little podcast together. So who knows, maybe when she gets older, maybe she's more a part of it. I don't really know what that looks like, but I do know that the conversation is going to come out. Can I have a phone? Well, everyone else has one.
Yeah.
And I go, okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's also a lot of kids that curse and smoke weed in middle school and drink. And there's a lot of kids that do a lot of different things. And I think if every parent kind of switches their mentality a little bit, and it's going to take a lot of time, maybe not even in our generation, but I think we got to be very careful, especially with the form of AI and everything that's going on with that. I think kids, they're going to need this technology, but they don't need it so young.
Yeah.
That's the key. Yeah. They need to appreciate it and know it, but they don't need it when they're so young. They're going to need it when they get older, so they need to know about it. I think sheltering kids, like the Amish, no bueno. But teaching a kid, hey, this is a smartphone. These do exist. Tablets exist. Like all this stuff exists. You should know about it. Like I want to teach my kid to code before she learns like, fucking AP physics. You know what I mean? Like, because that's important. I think she's gonna need that. But we just have to have a better appreciation. Someone who's like immersed in this culture all the time. You just hear a bunch of horror stories, and it's crazy, man. Because it is important, but it's also like we're gonna be the weird ones for sure. Like when our kid doesn't have a smartphone, and I'm prepared for that.
Yeah. Well, no, and that's it. As long as you accept it, right?
Yeah.
But I think you've got really great intentions, and I think the execution of that obviously is always going to be tough, because she's going to be and my kids too, right? Like they're already asking me, and their younger ones are 7 and 9, are asking me for phones and stuff like that, and it's a hard no right now. It comes back to need, right? You don't need it. I know where you are, right? There's no reason in the world for you to have it. Like anything else, what I find is just always having open communication with your kids, and coaching them throughout the way, and kind of teaching them perspective, engaging in dialogue, right? Like not making it one-sided. I found that's always really, really helpful. Nice. Because if I'm just always talking, it turns into more of like a lecture versus a conversation. And I don't know. It's one of the things I've just kind of found over the years that helps them to kind of understand perspective. And some things are easier than others to kind of get across, especially when it comes to like, your own personal household policies. But that's one in particular method that I've always found that's just been really, really helpful. Right. And truthfully, that's what they want. They want you, and they want you to kind of show them the way, and they want to be challenged, right? There's going to be things that they want or need or feel that they need, and they don't even really understand it yet. So it's hard for them to communicate it to you, but they want you to challenge it. They want you to show them the right way, right? And sometimes they know like, hey, this is a path that maybe, isn't the most agreeable, but I'm waiting for dad, or I'm waiting for mom to kind of, come in and talk to me about it and help me from making some bad decisions.
Yeah, man. No, well put for sure. It's great advice. And I've always kind of like had this mentality where as she gets older, I know, 99.9% of her friends, if they have fast food, and I personally don't want to raise her to like fast food, I know there's no controlling that, but what I can do is spend as much time as I can making our food better and making the experience better and doing, like, for example, I got the pizza oven, right? So we make pizza all the time. So she had her first slice of pizza, but it was chopped up in little bits, and it was the cutest thing ever. And I know the more we do that and we make our own pie and we make it kind of like a family thing, as she gets older, let's say she's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and someone's like, hey, do you want Domino's? She's like, ugh, no. My dad makes the best pizza. That's what I have to do, because I know what it's like being a kid. And I know if I say, don't have Domino's, that's all she's going to want is Domino's. But if I can make the experience better on the other side of the fence, I think that's the key takeaway that I talk to a lot of parents about, like, where it's like you can't really fight it, but what you can do is you can instill these values at a very young age and continue those values and make it a priority. And, making food at home and making an experience, that's better to them for years and years and years and years. And it gets instilled in them. So when they want to go to fast food and go to the drive-through, it's not appealing to them. That's like you mentioned earlier, right? On this, where it's like you don't have a taste for steak anymore. You don't crave it anymore. Well, that's because you were purged of that. And now you're starting fresh. Well, that's how every kid is. Every kid starts from fresh. So, like
100%.
I have a bunch of parents that I know that are like feeding their kids fast food at the age of 1 and 2. And I'm like, I can't imagine. That's crazy to me, because you're literally instilling, like, they never had food before. So now you're implanting whatever is in that food. Let's say it's all good, even though it's not. Let's say it is. Now all they're going to want is they're going to crave that. They're going to want that all the time. And when I try to have these conversations with parents, are like, well, where's the science behind that? And I go, well, first of all, have you ever had coffee? Okay, there's your science. Because when you don't have coffee, what happens? Yeah, you're a fucking nightmare because you're addicted to it. Because that's, once you have it once, you get hooked and you start having that crackhead itch. It's the same thing with food, man. Like, the more you instill these recipes and these ingredients, it's, that's what happens. You get hooked.
Well, kind of to the point where you were just talking about, right? Like giving kids, like, I feel like that's like a generational norm, because I feel people our age or younger that are giving their kids, French fries that are 1 year old from McDonald's, they were also getting French fries when they were kids, and their parents may have, right? So, like, and that's just, there's so many things that you can say that about, that I feel, I definitely feel like I'm in this class of people who try to break certain generational norms. And I think you're kind of in that group too. Where it could be food, it could be about anything, right? It could just be about anything in the world, and just, letting the kids kind of just be, and don't influence them on certain things. Try to give them healthy things, healthy thoughts, right? Those sort of things. And I think, it's nice when you can kind of see those changes a little bit. Like, even my youngest son, he's like really crazy into sports and soccer and this and that. And he plays FIFA all the time. And I noticed this week, like, he's playing as the girls team, as the women's team. Right. And I just think that's so cool. Like,
good for you,
so
man.
he's playing as the USA women's team. And
that's great.
Like, he knows all the players. He's now knowing the players on the on the international teams and stuff. I'm just like, man, that is so cool. Like, and then of course my two, younger knuckleheads, they watch WWE, and they've got the belt and everything like that. They're all about the women wrestlers. Like, and I just think that's just, cool. It's just one of those things that's just so cool. It's like, cause like I, go back 30 years ago, like, you talk about getting made fun of. Damn, I'd have gotten made fun of hardcore if I was, playing as the women team on a video game and stuff. So the more that, like,
the only woman that we would like show respect to was like in WWE is China. Yeah, she was more of a man than anything. So it's like we were all about it, like D-Generation X. All right, right on, let's do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if you're rooting for someone like some hot chick, no, you'd get made fun of for sure. Yeah,
exactly. So it's cool to just kind of normalize those sort of things, or really they're normalizing it for themselves, because they didn't have anybody yet to tell them,
they don't know
that that's not cool or something like that, right? So it just all goes along those lines. Just letting all, like, kind of the bullshit just go to the side, and letting the kids just kind of just be and exist and like the things they want to like, and not have everybody knock them down or give them healthier alternatives to things.
Right.
And it's even crazier to think that you have to say healthy alternatives. Should be like the bad stuff should really be the alternative, right?
Right.
When you really think about it, we talk about healthy. I hear that phrase all the time, healthy alternatives. It's like, no, it should just be the way,
Right.
and everything else should be the alternative.
Yeah, it's funny. It should, instead of healthy, they should call it an unhealthy alternative for the other stuff.
That's right.
Like
That's right.
the American diet should be the healthy stuff, and then when we want like fast food, we should be like, should we have the unhealthy alternative? That's how it should be. But
yeah.
No, I think that's a great point, man. When you talk about kids just letting them be, and I think kids are smarter than what we give them credit for. Humans in general are smarter, and I think we've kind of had this shtick in America where we're shoving ideologies and agendas down Americans' throat, and eventually now we're starting to understand, oh, this was all like planned. Like, oh, I see what's happening here. So we're trying to like shape the future of the generations to go a certain way, when really in hindsight, all you have to do is just leave the humans alone. We'll innovate, we'll do everything right. We'll treat everyone with kindness. We're good. But when you put a human being in front of a television and they're fed, whether it's CNN, whether it's Fox, and they're fed that for 15, 20 years, they're going to come up into that ideology. But if you just eliminate that noise from that human being, somehow they just end up a very nice, respectful human being, because we all want the same thing. We all want to live long and live happy. And we just got to like separate ourselves from the things that divide us. And I think to your point, when you're not really like telling these kids, hey, you should like the women's league. They're just doing it because they're like, oh, women's league today, men's league tomorrow. Who gives a shit? Like, to them, they don't care because they don't know any better. They don't know the difference between, women and men in terms of like, oh, women are better than men and men are better than women. Like, there's no, that they can't compute that stuff. They just know they like the sport and they just want to watch it. It's when we start feeding them bullshit where they start picking lanes and picking sides. And we just got to just got to let them be. Let these folks do their thing. You know what I mean?
100%. 100%. You got to do what you like.
Right.
And you kind of mentioned these news outlets and stuff like that, which I don't watch.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I don't tell anybody, oh, you shouldn't watch that. You shouldn't watch that, because it's your right. You should, hey, if you want to watch it, but it's crazy how tribal people get over stuff like that. And, how it's one of those things. I think that the reality of it is most people actually have more common ground than we give them credit for. Right. Yeah. And the problem with these tribes, right, like the right and left per se, is, they've got this list of kind of requirements, right? Like, you believe in this, and this. Yeah. And on this side, it's the same thing, but it's the opposing arguments. And there's really no in between. And it's so hard to have a conversation with somebody who's really far right or somebody who's far left, because, they're too far gone in some cases. Right. Mm-hmm. But the reality of it is that most people, right, they call themselves a Democrat or Republican, but it's like, me personally, I don't call myself either. I don't. I voted both ways. Because I believe in what I believe in, and that's it. Right. And no one can tell me any differently. And there's some things from here I believe in and some things from here I believe in. But what I truly believe is that when I talk to people like friends or coworkers and stuff, and we're just sitting down having lunch, we agree on so much more than you would think. Right? Oh, yeah. And they try to label me as if they feel like I'm too against what they like and stuff like that. And the more we feed into the bullshit of your Fox and your CNN or your political podcasts and stuff like that, the more you're really just you're divisive and you're polarized and you're feeding into really what their agenda is. And some people would say it's power, right? Because if you separate people, right, the thing they're scared the most is uniting, right? So what better way to control them than to divide? Right? That's one way to look at it. But there's way too much money in that kind of for them to abandon that platform, right? Even if there's no evil, power agenda for, like, let's just say Fox, it's the more we can feed into, their feelings and what we've trained them to be, the sexier it is. I keep them coming back every night and every morning to watch my shows. My ratings are high. And guess what? Life is good. I'm making money. So, it's just, I wish we could abandon that and really just kind of see the bigger picture, and really stop electing people based on the party and more so on, hey, is this somebody who's really good and fit to lead our country? Because I think that's why we're where we're at right now and why we have the choices we have. Because, I don't think, I know there's people that are very gung-ho on these candidates, but I think there's a large population that is just like, man, it just sucks. This is the best we can do twice in a row. Right. And it's because we put that party as a priority.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I think there lies the frustration of a lot of Americans. And what we don't understand is we do have the freedom to elect whoever we want. But the problem is, I mean, the parties are the parties, right? They're gonna have candidates based off what they want. Like, I would even say there was better Democrats and Republicans that I liked more than the candidates that we have left. But the problem is Republican Party, right? The Republican and Democratic Party look at it like, well, no one else can win except Biden. No one else can win except Trump. Like, that was their fucking thought process. And the fact that was their thought process, when if you line up 330 million Americans, they would not agree with that. And that is the problem with the political system. I think once you can, detach yourself from all the noise of the CNN and the Fox, it gets really, really, it gets clear-headed up here. When you separate yourself from those two channels and those two parties and don't really think about it too much and just, believe what you want to believe and vote when you want to vote. But at the end of the day, it's, again, we talked about this, wrapping this up into the consumerism. We are the consumer. And, I'm not like saying we should have a mass non-voting strike, but imagine if we did.
Right? Oh, man.
Imagine if we did. Imagine if every single person, imagine if every single person just decided not to vote in 2024. Yeah. It would shake up the world because we're saying, okay, enough's enough. You need to figure shit out. But, again, the problem is the government's just way too corrupt and it's got way too much money in it. And I think it'd be funny if we did have like some way of like doing a mass, like almost like what do they call those? Like the mass suicides, right? Where like 100 people drink the potion. It'd be cool if we all like did like a mass non-voting thing. Cause I still think somehow one party would win, even though we know not one American voted. And then we're like, that shit's rigged. Like every single person didn't vote in the country. For sure. No one did. But somehow one person won. It's like, oh, okay, this shit's corrupt. And I think it's starting to happen, right? I think you're starting to understand like everything that happened with the TikTok ban and, all these wars that are going on. It's no matter who you vote for, humans, like we said, they're smart. Like we're starting to understand, oh, so we don't need all this stuff. Okay, so we don't need this. We don't need to vote here. We don't need to vote here. Oh, okay. We don't need to believe in this policy. Oh, okay. Have more conversations. Oh, okay. I get it. Lay off the comment section. Oh, okay. I get it. Like we're starting to understand. I think within the decade, the government's going to be flipped around and they're going to be called out for what they are. And it's going to unite us, I think, even more. So.
I definitely agree. I think there's big changes on the horizon. And I think also as the younger population grows larger, right, and starts to outnumber the older populations, it really shakes the game up. Because, I could see things that I agree with on both sides of that argument, right? But, historically, right, you look at the older generations, they vote more Republican than anything. But the older generations are getting smaller and smaller, whereas the younger generations are getting bigger and bigger, right? So the question you would have to ask yourself on that side of the table is how do we start appealing to this younger group of people who, are basically already kind of taking over, right? So there's a lot of shakeup that even if there's resistance to it, it's going to happen. It has to happen.
Yeah. I think overall it's going to, again, we're living in the greatest time in history. And I don't think we're ever going to look, I mean, God forbid, even if there's something that crazy happens where, there's a digital war or there's a mass invasion or something goes down, I think overall we might need some sort of reset to band us together, because I don't think it's going to get any worse. Like, like it's 2024, right? There's never been a better time to be alive than right now. I don't know if like in the 70s people could say that. Right? Like,
yeah.
So I think it's constantly getting better. We just have to band together, really use critical thinking skills, and take our time with decision making. And we are the consumers. Like, the reason America is the most popular, successful country in the world, I put that in quotes for people just listening, is because we are very innovative and we are very powerful, and we got skills. We just have to, we have to learn how to understand, hey, it's not just the government that's running this thing. Like, the citizens are running the show. And I think we're starting to understand that. So,
yeah.
And that kind of all encompasses to, hey, run your own company if you can, be passionate about something and go all in, because that is the American dream. The American dream is not coming in and working 3 jobs and supporting your family. That was the American dream. It is not in 2024. So Dan, give us a shout out on where people could find your business. I'll leave everything in the description below for people listening, but where can they find you?
Yeah, so you can find us at shockwavethreads.com. We have an up and running website. Next week, we're actually going to have a new website. It's going to have more functionality where you can design your own shirts and your own products. You can upload your own designs, and you can order. It's your own designer, right? Your own design mock-up. So a lot of really exciting things coming on the horizon for us. A little bit of a rebrand in that process. So I am wearing some of our new merch with our brand new logo there that we came up with. We're going to start marketing. First time that we're doing that. We've been very, very successful with just word of mouth business, and based on basically just the quality of what we do, right? People really like what we're doing, why we're doing it. But yeah, shockwavethreads.com is where you can find us. You can always reach out to me directly at dan@shockwavethreads.com if you have any questions or, need a quote or just kind of want to know a little bit more about the business. But we do have an About Us section on there and our story that you can kind of read up and find out a little bit more about us as well.
Nice. Well, Dan, I know we had some tech issues, but it worked out well, man. We're at an hour already. So this is time flies, doesn't it? In this thing?
Thanks for being patient. Yeah.
No worries, man. Trust me, this is the least stressful thing that I deal with when it comes to this. I have people from like UK and Australia. There's some tech issues right there that I run into. So this is nothing. Thanks for coming on the show, and this was fun, dude. We'll do it again.